what happened. All right. Hey, guys, we are live on the Redroom. I think this is episode 110 here with Luke and Tracy, as always.
Yes.
And then we have Brian Locker here to share his insights. Brian's an attorney. He's actually represented me on a case that I think took like a year and a half, and I wrote him way too many checks. But that's But so the market is like we expect in October. It's a little slow. Inventory has crawled up, but something kind of interesting is we've seen that 10-year kind of dip into the fours or maybe the high threes, but it's only usually stayed there for like a day or two when you have a really bad jobs report or the stock market sinks really bad. But it has stayed there for about 2 weeks, meaning your interest rates are probably at 6 or slightly over. If you're getting a government loan, which obviously government's shut down, so government loans are taking longer, they're probably slightly under 6. So interestingly enough, we don't get the jobs report because the government shuts down, but ADP did announce today that they are going to start putting out weekly private sector job numbers so that you can kind of keep track of something. So you get some data to play with. You're not getting the government money or the government information, which, by the way, is like never right. So they come in and say, oh, we created 80,000 new jobs, and then they downgrade it to like 30,000 jobs the next month. So it's kind
as information comes back in. Yeah.
It's more of a political thing that I think that it is. I think ADP's numbers will probably be a lot better because that's real numbers from somebody that's, writing checks, ADP, right? So, so that should be interesting. That's how I got on the market. It is definitely slow. I know that Luke did a bang up job on a couple Gilbert properties for us. And they're just kind of sluggish. So, and they're on the water, right, Luke?
They are beautiful houses, and they are just sitting.
Yeah. So
we know where we're holding the Halloween parties then.
They're next door to each other too. Just knock that wall down, and we got 2 beautiful yards.
Perfect.
So cool. All right, Brian. Let's jump into the nitty gritty. What's really ringing the bell for attorneys out there for our investors?
Oh man. Well, first off, I appreciate you having me on. When we were talking before we went live about what's making my phone ring and stuff, it made me think about a case that I was just advising on this morning. You were talking about the fact that the market is slow. And I think the impulse for investors in a market like this is to stretch a little bit, maybe take a deal that you wouldn't otherwise take, a little thinner, and you just try to make it work, right? Build value in it in some other way, because you're not going to be able to just sit on it, and make money like it's 5 years ago. And that can get people in trouble. So in this particular instance, we had someone who took a relatively, thin margin deal. There was probably, maybe 30 grand in it, all told. But there needed to be a probate done. And the probate was not just a simple, affidavit of succession to real property. You're in, you're out. It was a full probate because of the length of time that it had taken, and yada yada.
Yep.
And all that would have been fine, but this investor made one key error, and that was not fully investigating the extent of the work needed on that property. And I think that is really the point I want to drive home here. Is there's obviously the obstacles that are right in front of you that you're going to need to deal with. But in this case, what the investor didn't do is run a condition of title report. And it turns out that there was an affidavit filed by a neighbor like 8 years ago on the property claiming adverse possession of that property.
Oh, no.
And now that doesn't in and of itself mean that this whole deal is dead, But when we looked really closely at the facts, we determined that this particular neighbor did in fact probably have a good claim for adverse possession.
Oh, wow.
And it completely torpedoed the deal. I mean, there's no getting around the fact that what the investor had with their purchase contract with the seller probably was no good. And they're going to have some strategies to maybe pull out and mitigate losses, but it's going to be a loss. There's no doubt about it, because the probate and the other title work that needed to get done, was about a little under 20 grand on a deal that was probably only worth 30 to 40 to begin with.
Right.
And so the best that they can hope for in that case is a small loss as opposed to a large loss. And so we obviously just hate seeing that. And had there been a little bit more due diligence done, had the condition of title report been run, that investor would have been able to make a more full or more well-educated decision as to whether that was a deal for them. And frankly would have helped with the negotiation with the seller as well, because they would have identified that additional issue and been able to drive the purchase price down to accommodate for that. So in any event, these are the kinds of things that we're seeing. It's a learning lesson. Anybody who's had to deal with random title issues popping up, you'll probably only make that mistake once.
Small loss is not the worst thing in the world right now.
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting little segment here is like, I mean, I hate to say it, but some investors just put cash in a deal just to keep cash moving, or they have a gap funding guy that they need to keep back moving. But like in a market like it's been in the last 2.5 years, like I know I'm preaching to Luke on this one. Like sometimes it's better just to sit on your hands and not get in a deal. So
I think where sometimes investors can get themselves in trouble, like myself for a couple of years there, is you end up building up a really solid crew as well, and you don't want to lose them. So because you don't want to lose your crew, you exactly like Brian said, you might take on some deals that are a little tight. And I mean that's I'll be the first person to say that we did that too often. I mean. We have really good guys, and they build their crew up, and then obviously, there's a happy medium where it's like you want to keep them busy, but then at the same time, you're not going to, in a sense, pander to them of making sure that you have the entire team, busy of maybe you started with 6 guys and now they've got 14 guys, maybe you just let them drop back down to 6, and you just keep them busy with a deal or two. But I think investors can get themselves in trouble that way too, because the fear of loss of losing a really good crew that is solely working for yourself at the time is it's a little scary.
Yeah. Brian, I know you'd mentioned, and I think and maybe you can dig in a little bit about the solar stuff, because I know you had a client that went through some rough times on that, and I don't think that investors completely understand that there's owned solar, there's leased solar, and disclosing all the stuff and transferring it properly can just be a mess.
It's a complete mess. So yeah, so we've got someone who has this down to a pretty good system where what they do is they identify homes in foreclosure that have solar attached to them, and because many, I should say, I don't know about most, but many of these solar companies, they record a UCC financing statement when it's either a lease or financed solar, and that's a good thing, because generally a UCC fixture filing acts as a lien on real property the same way a deed of trust would, a lender's deed of trust would. And so when a foreclosure occurs, it has the same effect as a downstream lender, which is any junior lien holders are wiped out in the foreclosure. And so this particular investor identifies those properties and has a system in place where they utilize our office to go clear those solar liens, these UCC fixture filings that are recorded, because they didn't redeem the property, so their lien is no good. Now, the solar company does have an alternative remedy. They can actually go in and pull the panels off of the roof, but none of them want to do that. None of them.
Right.
I've never seen it happen because they got.
I lost the sound. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I lost. Brian, your sound is gone. Did you mute accidentally?
It seemed like his audio and visual were lagging, and then it stopped.
Oh,
Yeah.
Come on. Whoa, Brian's gone.
Brian!
Come on, Brian. He'll be back on in a second.
Yeah.
No, that's a great topic for you guys to bring up, because I think especially for high volume investors and anyone that's been active in the last decade, it's like anything other than going at 9,000 RPM and keeping people busy and the business growing at really healthy clips is destabilizing. It feels different, right? And how do you retool to different when you don't know what and exactly how to anchor that? Like, it could be better in 12 months, it could be worse in 12 months. So how do you retool to be able to restabilize when the market is as uncertain as it is? So sometimes slow and steady, but other times people are just retooling into vertical businesses that have nothing to do with the physical asset of real estate.
Right.
All right, Brian. So the people are getting their foreclosure. Are they actually letting them go through the foreclosure and then just saying, "Hey, you get foreclosed, so we're releasing this"? And that's what they're using you for?
Yeah, my understanding is they're just going in and bidding at the foreclosure sale and acquiring them out of there, knowing, having run title reports on these things, that they're going to be able to get those liens released that are often, an extra 20, 30,000. So that's just additional value for them in the deal that other investors may not identify. But yeah, once it comes into our office, we send a demand letter to the solar company saying you got 20 days to either release the lien or come pull your panels off the roof. And our experience so far has been that they've basically ignored us. And so we spin up litigation to have it removed, and that there's a claim for attorney's fees and costs and all of that, so we can collect against these solar companies that don't play ball. And so that's what we're seeing in cases where we've got either leased or financed solar panels, and sort of how we're assisting with those.
Have you noticed that certain solar companies are easier to work with than others in the sense of that?
Oh man, I haven't yet encountered a solar company that was easy to work with.
Right.
So no, unfortunately, they're all bad.
It's an oxymoron.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So
I got a business idea that just crossed my head. Brian, while you're contacting these solar companies, are you having somebody track the excess proceeds and collecting the $10,000 to $20,000, $30,000 that these guys could be owed, and probably it gets bid up that much, is my guess.
Very well could be. The issue we run in with excess proceeds is you got to have standing to bring the claim for them, and if you're the one buying it out of foreclosure, you don't have standing to collect those excess proceeds. So you'd need to get an assignment from the prior owner as the investor, and then go get them that way. But yeah, there's some people who have some interesting strategies around excess proceeds for sure.
And it doesn't sound like you're going to share them.
I don't necessarily agree that they are. So most of the people who are making money on excess proceeds are doing them incorrectly, and will end up getting sideways with someone over it. Whether it's most likely the state of Arizona or wherever you're at. There's very specific things you got to follow, and a lot of people. They skip a couple of steps, and that'll work the first 2 or 3 times you do it. Those people over in the assessor's office, or whoever's holding those funds, the treasurer's office, they start seeing names recur. There's only like 2 or 3 people, who handle all of them. And when they start seeing the same name pop up 10, 15, 20 times, they're going to start taking a peek and and you're gonna end up getting the state of Arizona jumping in saying, we're uncomfortable with what's going on. So there's nothing crazy. I've had a lot of people sort of pitch me on what they want to do, and I'm usually like a bucket of ice cold water on their on their great idea. Like, I'm not sure it's going to work out the way you think it's going to.
Yeah, sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of chasing profit centers, what's been your exposure or experience with people doing subject to that have no business doing that? Because that's been a really popularized, there's a lot of gurus that are really pushing that right now too, because there's so many homeowners that have such low interest rates. So what are you seeing coming across your desk?
Yeah, let me approach this question from two different perspectives. Perspective number one is an investor in the state of Arizona. If you're in Arizona, our firm's current advice is to avoid subject to transactions at all costs, not because we believe that they're illegal, not because we believe they can't be done, but because the state of Arizona has decided, as a matter of policy, that these transactions are illegal. I have a very strong fundamental disagreement on that point with the governor. Frankly, who's issuing policy through the Arizona Attorney General. But yeah, so I would not, if I was getting into investing, even if I knew everything there is to know about sub-2 transactions, I would still not engage in them in Arizona. There are alternative creative structures that existed long before sub-2 existed that are still perfectly viable in the form of contracts for deed. And those create alternatives that can accomplish a similar objective just in a different way and doesn't have the same issues that the state of Arizona has with sub-2 transactions. So that's from the perspective of Arizona.
Right.
Outside of Arizona, laws are different, and that can still be a valid, a valid strategy for creative finance and wholesale transactions. I would just be really cautious. Policy follows action, and these states are kind of catching up to this huge market that was created with, these influencers that you're referring to.
Yeah.
And so I think you'll see more laws coming down in other states that are going to increase consumer protections through this so-called equity stripping that people who are really opposed to these kinds of strategies are having with what's going on. So in any event, I think that if you know exactly what you're doing and you are very good at educating your sellers on what exactly they're getting into, I think absolutely in any state other than Arizona be potentially a viable way to go.
Right. Quick question for you. Are you dealing with much of, wholesalers? Are you, I guess, wholesalers not putting that it's a wholesale transaction on their contracts and having to, deal with that? Have you had to deal with much of that yet?
We did right when the law in Arizona was passed that required the wholesale seller and buyer disclosures. But I think most people in the industry have sort of gotten the memo and have updated their contracts. But I just had one, man, this year for sure, that for whatever reason they used an outdated contract with that particular seller, and sure enough, we had started some litigation because the seller wasn't performing, and I got a letter from a lawyer saying there's no wholesale disclosure in this contract, and the law says that the seller can straight up cancel the contract, and that's what it was, and that the tough lesson for the wholesaler. So you only have to lose out on one decent deal to make sure that never happens again. But yeah, it definitely still happens.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So what else is ringing the phone that just anything? I mean, obviously dotting your I's and crossing your T's on the contracts is just like, I mean, that's the starting point for everybody, right? Just making sure your contract's in a good spot and making sure your assignment's good and all the way down the chain, right? Because you can mess up in the middle too that can still come back and bite you.
You know, here's, try to put a positive spin on this here at the end of the half hour. I got 2 calls over the last couple of weeks that were deals that ended up working out really well. So one of them was one that looked like it was going to be really bad, which is they were under contract. This investor was under contract to purchase a home. They did a lease back with an option to purchase. And so the seller was essentially their tenant for a period of time. And this particular investor does them very favorably, so that in the event that anybody has a problem with it, they've got very favorable offer or purchase option terms there.
What was his name, Brian? I'm just kidding.
There are people in this room who know exactly who I'm talking about, or at least know them. But in any event, they the house burned down when it came time for the tenant to move out. They suspected very strongly that the seller burned it down because he was not happy with how everything turned out.
Wow.
And by the way, they never took out their own homeowner's insurance policy after they closed escrow on the leaseback. And they thought it was going to be a total loss. Turns out they were able to get they had an assignment of insurance claims that they did at closing, and they were able to get the insurer to pay out on the total loss. And while we needed to take care of we need to take care of getting possession of the property through the tenant, and we needed to get a receiver appointed to have the insurance proceeds actually dispersed properly, because the insurance checks were being made out to both our client and the seller, and the seller didn't want to cooperate. But at the end of the day, they're going to end up with a brand spanking new $400,000 house on this lot that they acquired for below market value, and it's going to turn out very, very well. So things can tip the other direction on a complex issue and turn out to work out pretty well. And then I lost my train of thought on the other one, but takeaway is if you're closing on a deal, make sure you've secured insurance on that property, especially if you've got some sort of a lease back, seller remains in possession type thing. You really just don't know what's going to happen. Make sure you're properly insured for what could possibly take place there at the property.
So I want to go back to the policy versus law thing. And I've been in the business long enough to know that that going to a homeowner and offering a acquisition with a seller leaseback, and I'm saying, and I would assume it's probably the same for this administration, but previous administrations, when you did that in a foreclosure situation where you knew that the fact that they were in bad economic status and that they probably wouldn't be able to take the option back. I've known, and this is, I want to say 2006 or 7. I definitely know somebody.
Uh-oh.
We're losing you, Chris.
Chris, your audio's cutting out right at the cliffhanger too.
I know. It's pretty awesome how it's frozen, though.
Am I back? You're
back.
Yeah, you're back. Yeah, you're right at the juicy part.
Yeah. So anyway, I ended up with somebody I know with little bars in front of his windows for a little bit because he was lease optioning to what they said were.
We lost you again.
Come on.
So all I heard was that he's got bars in front of his windows, so he must have moved to Maryvale.
Oh boy.
It's like the movies when they say there's only one thing that you guys need to know before you go into this heist, and then this thing cuts away. Come
Am I
on.
back now?
What was the term?
Oh, so I just wanted to know, this guy, I think that he was targeting distressed sellers and lease optioning back, knowing that they really couldn't buy back, and he definitely got clipped for that. So, but I don't think it's an actual law.
So yes and no. What they'll argue is if the terms are structured in such a way where it looks like a loan, they'll basically say that you're basically originating loans without a license, and you only get, what is it, one or so a year free, freebie before you got to go get yourself your mortgage license. So I think that's how they backdoor it, is they say, well, this leaseback looks awfully like you were lending them money to reinstate their loan, because a lot of these guys are doing it sub 2.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and when you get this really favorable buyback term, it really just kind of looks like that's the interest on the loan. And so that's how they do it. That's the issue they take with it, is you're sort of trying to circumvent the lender licensing laws. So
Gotcha.
Makes sense.
So anything else we missed? What else we got?
I've got a question. Let's just say
I have a friend.
that you had a lot that you bought when 6 years ago, and you forgot about the lot, and then you remembered the lot, and you didn't pay taxes on the lot for 6 years, property taxes. And then let's just say that somebody did what's it called, where they bring it current.
A tax lien?
Yeah, so they pay the tax lien, and then you get a message from an attorney saying that you owe this person the taxes and the attorney fee, and then is that it, or can they also say that they also want to be paid something for doing it?
Yes and no.
Brought it current. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So yes and no. So it done right. People do this all the time, right? They purchase the tax liens, and it's a bidding system. So whoever bids the lowest percentage interest rate on the tax lien will win it, and then they have to hold it for a certain period of time before they can initiate a tax lien foreclosure sale. But in the meantime, the person who owns the property always, up until the sale, has a right of redemption. And it ends up being, a bit of a, negligence or stupid tax to, have to pay the lawyer for the letter that they wrote you, and the interest rate, and, all of that stuff. But generally it comes out to a pretty nominal fee. If they're, there's a lawyer over at Tiffany and Bosco that handles a very large percentage of these. And there's another few attorneys here in town, and what I've seen is you're typically talking about less than $1,000 of attorney's fees plus a nominal amount of interest, depending on how much time's passed, and then you just bring it current. A lot of people, I've met with a lot of people over the years who have freaked out. They're like, I didn't pay my property taxes, now this thing's, and it's like, okay, just go pay it. Everything will be okay.
Right. So they don't have any right to possibly take the property.
They do, but not only if you don't pay, right? So you have a right of redemption all the way up until the sale of the property via judicial foreclosure. So you're going to have lots of notice.
It's actually a judicial foreclosure. So in the state of Arizona, you actually have up to 6 months past the date to redeem, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah. It's a judicial process. So you will have likely been, even towards the end, you'll have been served personally, if you're not hard to find. And, and so you'll know, and your friend,
Schmoot Schmortberg.
Exactly. Very cool. All right. Yeah. Good to know.
Looks like I got to go send an email. I got to get online for county assessor. Got to go. Man.
Sounds good.
Well, Brian, we appreciate you jumping on. We like to keep this right at a half hour. I will put your contact information in our chat so everybody has access to it. And if you have any questions, like I said, Brian's helped me out. If you have any questions, you can reach out to him or his office. And like I said, I worked with Brian for 18 months or so, maybe longer. I don't know, but everything came out.
Technically, it still is going on. Just
I was going to say, how did it turn out, guys? We love attorney stories.
It's very, very, very important to have a very good real estate attorney, especially if you're doing high volume. I mean, it is an absolute necessity. There's no doubt about that. So if you don't have one, reach out to Brian.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
Really appreciate the opportunity to come on.
Absolutely.